Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Episode 159. The Offspring.
Welcome into another episode of Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm Ken Ray, but you can call me Father.
And I'm John Champion, and you can also call me Father.
Oh, the Mission Log audience has two daddies. And that's how all sorts of rumors get started. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
This week, just to cut you off.
Just go right ahead,
yeah. This week it's the Offspring, when we get to say hello to Data's kid, Lal.
OMG! LOL.
No, not LOL. It's Lal. L-A-L.
Well, that's not nearly as funny. Sorry. It's just one thing after another with me. I don't know what the deal is. Hey, in fact, here's another thing. It's the contact information for how to get in touch with us. And who wouldn't want to after that beginning, huh? Mission Log Pod is the address to find us on Facebook, Skype, and Twitter. If you want to leave us a voicemail, we would love that. Phone number 323-522-5641. Number again is 323-522-5641. Our email address is missionlog@roddenberry.com. Our show website, including discovered documents and links to other things, is at missionlogpodcast.com. And please do remember, we may use your comments on an upcoming episode of Mission Log.
But first, Ken, trivia, if you will indulge me. Okay. Today's episode, The Offspring, was directed by a guy you may have heard of named Jonathan Frakes.
Jonathan Frakes. He directed The Librarian.
Jonathan Frakes. He with magnificent beard. This was his first real directing gig, and people pretty much know the story because he has told it many a time. But in the first couple of seasons of Star Trek, he expresses interest in directing. So he let Rick Berman know, and Rick Berman said, okay, well, you're going to go to Paramount School, which was just his way of saying you have to go around and learn every single thing about the process of making TV. So you're going to go to audio sessions, you're going to go to post, you're going to sit in on casting and meetings. And he kind of hoped that it would turn him off from the whole idea. But no, Frakes persevered, and he became then the first Star Trek actor to direct an episode of Star Trek while on the show. Shatner and Nimoy obviously had directed feature films, but Jonathan Frakes broke some new ground by doing this on TV. And interesting story here about the writer. Today's episode is written by Renee Echeverria, a name we should all get used to because it will come up again. Fun story about him. So he was in college, and he thought that he was going to go into medicine like his father. And then kind of on a whim, he auditioned for Cats. He moved to New York City. He was a waiter, because that's what you do when you're an actor in New York City. And he wrote a spec script for Star Trek, and it was The Offspring. And because of that open door submission policy, they bought it. So Michael Piller, of course, came in and did his magic, and he shifted the focus more from Lal toward Data, and it became the episode that we see here today. Couple of visual notes here. We get to welcome back an Excelsior-class ship. Now, this one doesn't actually get a name, but it is Admiral Haftel's Sweet Ride. And for the first time here, Ken, we get to see the Picard double facepalm, which has become a very popular internet meme. Now, when we mention the name Lal, Picard says that Lal means beloved in Hindi. It's closer to dear or darling, and it's typically a name used for males, but it is still a word, a phrase that has some meaning of affection in Hindi. Now, let's talk about our guest stars. Hallie Todd plays Lal, and most famously, she played the mom on Lizzie McGuire. But in the 80s, she was on a show that I watched a lot on Showtime called Brothers. It ran from 1984 to 1989 and has the distinction of being the first cable TV show that was syndicated onto regular broadcast TV. And its themes were really cutting edge for the time that it aired. Do you remember that show?
No, I do not.
All right, so three brothers who live in Philadelphia, and Hallie Todd played Penny. She was the daughter of one of the brothers, the middle brother, Joe. And the show started out, its pilot episode started out in which Joe and his other brother are, his older brother, are at the wedding for their youngest brother. He backs out of the wedding and admits to his two brothers that he is gay. And in 1984, now granted this was cable, but then it very quickly made the move over to broadcast TV. This was pretty interesting subject matter. And after screening a couple of episodes to prep for this, to kind of refresh my memory, it's incredible the things that have changed in TV and our attitudes and perceptions and what is funny, and the things that have not. Now, today...
Oh, wait a minute. You got to forgive me. I feel like we would be remiss. Soap did it in 78.
Oh, yeah, they did. They had the character played by Billy Crystal. Absolutely, yeah. But he was not the central focus of that show.
That's true, but nobody was the central focus of that show.
No. This show starts off that is kind of the premise of the show, and these two older brother characters trying to deal with that for the better part of 5 seasons.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Today, Hallie Todd runs Hallie Todd Studios. She is an acting coach. And Nicholas Coster plays Admiral Haftel, and he was born in London. He has had a long career in TV soap operas, but appeared in many other guest roles as well as in film. Funny, we had an actor from Titanic in last week's show, but Coster was in the 1953 film Titanic, also in an uncredited role. He shows up in such diverse shows as The Misadventures of Sheriff Lobo, The Facts of Life as David Warner. No, not that David Warner, not the David Warner. Third Rock from the Sun, and on and on.
Do not attempt to adjust your listening device. The static you hear in this episode is not your fault. There were myriad technical difficulties recording the show this week. I blame Admiral Haftel.
Prologue. The Enterprise has a boring charting mission, and Riker is away on leave. No problem. There's probably something else happening for our crew to occupy their time. Geordi, Wesley, and Deanna are interested in what Data has been doing in a secret lab. When those three show up early to find Data, something is afoot. Literally and figuratively. Data is holding a foot of the android variety, and he affixes it to an android body before welcoming his 3 friends. The new android, with an indistinct face and body, is introduced as Lal, and they're like, LOL and LMFAO, and Data's like, no, Lal with an A. Lal asks why these other beings are wearing clothes, father, which really startles everyone else as Data confirms, yes, Lal is his child. Act 1. Bring in the big guns. Picard comes to the lab to meet Lal. Data explains that he copied part of his positronic brain to create Lal, continuing the work of Dr. Sung, and expects Lal to learn and grow with the same capabilities Data himself has. Picard is impressed, but a little concerned. He says that he wishes he'd been consulted, to which Data asks if he should deactivate Lal. Picard objects that Lal is a life form, and at some point, Starfleet will become involved. Deanna's attitude is, hey, chill out. Lal is basically a child, Data's child. Just let Data do his thing, okay? Data is planning to treat Lal just like a child, with himself in the role of parent. First step is to help the nondescript android choose its own gender and look. Deanna helps, going through composites of human, Andorian, Klingon, etc. Lal finally settles on human female for herself, and Data has outdone himself on replicating the desired look. Lal, more so than her father, is a dead ringer for a genuine human being. Act 2. Data takes Lal to their quarters and gives her a basic primer on things. Chairs, tables, painting, flowers. She's taking it all in and learning fast. Really fast. She's socializing, trying to play ball with Wesley. Data is taking it all in like a proud parent would if he experienced pride. He does acknowledge that he's experiencing what it's like to learn these basics all over again through her. Wesley has an even better suggestion. Why not send her to school? There would be other kids there who would at least resemble her age, mid to late teens or so. They've got teachers, puppies, the whole thing. Data agrees, and it's just as well because Lal is starting to ask the really tough questions about where she came from and what her purpose is. Meanwhile, Picard has heard from Starfleet, and the conversation is kind of tense. Admiral Haftel is insistent that Lal should come to Starfleet, that she may be studied, and Data's presence there is neither wanted nor needed. Picard tries his best. He is in control of things on his ship, after all. Lal begins school, but even that doesn't go terribly well for her. She isn't socializing well with the other students, and the youngest kids are kind of afraid of her. Data has to have a very real talk with her about the difference between kids laughing with her versus laughing at her. He goes to Dr. Crusher for help. She, after all, is raising a teenager herself. The best advice, though, is just to be there for her, to give her love and attention. And Data admits that the love part of the equation is something he simply does not have. Admiral Haftel calls Picard late at night with a short message. He's on his way to the Enterprise, and he has Starfleet's permission to take Lal back with him. Act 3. Data is at work improving Lal's neural pathways, and he has an idea for her interpersonal development. A job. In 10 Forward, Guinan is happy to have an extra pair of hands, and she's glad to give Lal an opportunity. She and Data are even more intrigued that Lal is able to use contractions in her speech. Could it be a sign that Lal is exceeding Data's programming? Before he can think too much about it, Picard summons Data to his ready room, where he explains that Admiral Haftel is on his way and may be stepping in to remove Lal to a research facility. Data objects, for many reasons, but the Admiral may overrule them both. Lal is learning about some of the more interesting ways humans interact by observing people in 10 Forward. There's flirting, hand-holding, kissing, all very new and somewhat confusing to Lal. Riker is back from his leave, and he stops by 10 Forward and immediately gives Lal the eye. When she tries to implement what she has learned by planting a big kiss on him, Data interrupts as a concerned father asking exactly what the commander's intentions are. Lal's confusion grows. She is aware that she cannot and will not experience emotions. She, and Data for that matter, will forever be able to interact with humans but never experience their emotions. It is a limitation, he admits, that the effort to carry on yields its own rewards, even if he and Lal will never truly be human. Act 4. Everybody say hello to Admiral Krabby Pants. Haftel has arrived. He's a lot less interested in learning about the current situation and rather just announcing that he is there to take Lal. The longer she is with Data, the more damage can be done. Best take her away to be studied by top men. Top men. Data informs Haftel that he has completed copying his neural net to Lal, but there are some slight aberrations. She can use contradictions for one, but he's careful to study anything that is out of the ordinary. When Haftel first sees Lal, she is in 10 Forward, the social nerve center of the ship, and doing her thing, serving drinks and observing human behavior. Haftel goes from unimpressed to deeply unpleased, and he asks to meet Lal. The meeting goes, well, about as poorly as can be imagined. Haftel is really trying to sell the research lab to Lal. Oh yeah, you'll love it. You'll be away from your father and all you know will be surrounding you, studying and judging everything. Doesn't that sound like the best? Picard has a novel solution. Why doesn't he ask? The answer from Lal is a decisive no. Then something weird happens. It's not just contractions that Lal has picked up apart from Data. It's emotion. She's genuinely confused, frightened, scared. She goes off to see Deanna Troi, who picks up the emotion right away. Lal knows what it means to feel. Act 5. Haftel doesn't really know when to stop. It's really kind of an illness. Now he's buttering up Data. Oh yeah, you are a great father, no question about it. Really, I feel ya. But what if a Romulan took out the Enterprise and we'd lose both of you? That's why we have to split you up. Picard sees the point, but come on. Really, come on. Lal depends on Data. This is wrong, and Data agrees too. He is not prepared to give up Lal. Haftel sees the emotion of the arguments, the sincerity of Picard and Data's positions. Who am I kidding? The rest of his argument goes something like this. I want, mine. Data is ordered by Haftel to turn Lal over to him. Picard tells Data to delay the order. Time for a little old-fashioned, conscientious objection to the direct order. There will be no blindly following orders today. Before the debate can carry on much further, an urgent call comes from Deanna Troi. There's something wrong with Lal. After the emotional event, Lal has returned to the lab where she is less responsive. Her neural nets are failing. In what can only be described as brain surgery, Data will have to reboot Lal while maintaining her higher functions. It's grim, and Haftel offers to help. Some time passes, and Haftel exits the lab to let the others know what happened. Data made every effort to save Lal, but the damage was too intense. His hands moved so fast that Haftel's eyes only saw a blur. Lal cannot be saved. Data has a moment to say goodbye. Lal will shut down, but before she goes, she tells Data she loves him and thanks him for life. A moment later, she is gone. When Data returns to duty, he explains what happened to the bridge crew. She was deactivated, but her programming, her memories, were transferred to Data and will always be a part of him. The end.
Boy, Picard would have hated Spock deeming V'ger a child.
Yeah?
Don't you think?
Yeah, well, I guess...
I fail to see how a 5-foot android with heuristic learning abilities and the strength of 10 men could be called a child.
I mean, V'ger was, what, 1.2 AUs wide?
I don't know. I don't even know what that is.
Yeah. The astronomical unit.
Oh, okay.
Distance from the Earth to the Sun. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. V'ger was huge.
V'ger was huge.
And powerful.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't think Picard would have bought it. Not for a second. No.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Hey, Riker's on leave, and A, I thought he didn't take vacations because he pretty much made that clear in an earlier episode, and B, where do you drop him off and pick him up?
Wherever.
Okay.
Behind the camera, mister. That's the reason.
Well, no, it's, well, of course, it definitely is the reason.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So he only has that one short moment in there. And...
well, two. He's also there at the end.
He's also at the very end.
Looking sad like everybody else.
Yeah, as they should. But it is an interesting idea. Like, the Enterprise is way out in deep space. Maybe there's a starbase somewhere. But it's not just like, okay, well, we have to go do this other mission, but we'll just leave this guy here and we'll come back. It'll only take 3 weeks to get back. You know? I'm saying the distances are huge. Huge!
Yeah.
Like V'ger.
Yeah, like V'ger.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question.
Yeah.
A lot of times people were horrified that I wasn't watching the, sort of the remastered editions of the different shows that we've been watching. I've been watching whatever's been on Netflix. Right?
Sure, yeah. Which recently became the HD version.
Yeah. And here's a good reason that I haven't been watching the HD version. Is the book in Picard's Ready Room always open to A Midsummer Night's Dream?
You just fixate on that?
Well, no, here's the thing. It caught my eye. The illustration caught my eye. At first, I thought it was Giger.
Right.
But then I looked at it more closely. I was like, no, I think that's Bottom.
Oh, Bottom, yeah.
And then I looked over on the side, and it says right there at the top of the page, A Midsummer Night's Dream. Right. And so I was wondering, did they choose A Midsummer Night's Dream for this episode in particular?
Oh, yeah.
And then I would have to know a little bit more about A Midsummer Night's Dream to know why, or is it just always open to A Midsummer Night's Dream? And follow-up question, what good is a book that's behind glass?
Well, you get to see that art every time you walk into a room. Yeah, you can see
that plate.
Yeah.
That plate. Hey, just order a plate if that's what you're going to do then. Have 5 of them.
I like the unnecessarily slow lowering mechanism in the lab. When we first meet Lal, like he's got the body down at kind of work level so he can attach the foot, and he's like, no, wait, everybody stay out, and then he raises the thing, and then they come back in so he can lower it. Yeah. Very dramatic. But all I could think about is how the people on the deck above feel about that space being used up. It's like, they could have fit maybe like 2 more crewmen in a room up there, and they're like, no, this is the thing where if you're on the deck below, it comes down, and it's very dramatic, and people clap, and it looks great. So, sorry, Crewman Johnson and Crewman Jones, you're going to have this big column that just juts up in the middle of what would have been really spacious quarters. Maybe you should try the holodeck instead. When Lal's picking out what form she will take, as an android, like we see a human, and we see the Klingon. The Andorian was really kind of fun because it looked like an illustration from a sci-fi magazine of the 50s about little green men, or in this case, bluish.
It did. What's weird though is we've seen an Andorian before.
Yeah,
I was confused by the cartoony.
Yeah,
is that what they look like when they're younger?
Oh, maybe. Okay, sure. We'll go with that.
Yeah.
Why not? Why not? I think everybody was a little embarrassed about Beverly calling Wesley about his haircut. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
I'm in the lab with the lowering mechanism talking to Data.
Yeah, that was actually kind of a weird thing for her to do.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just, they're looking at the script. Somebody was like, we got to get Wesley out of there. Okay. Mom calls.
Was she got a tracker on him, though? Or did she call the barber shop looking for him and he wasn't there?
Oh, my gosh.
And also, I kind of figured there would be sort of a Jetsons thing going on in the 24th century, right? Where you just, lower a bowl onto your head and it gives you the perfect haircut. And then you don't like it, you lower the bowl again and it changes the haircut.
Right. Wouldn't that be great?
That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, that'd be terrific.
Sort of Jetsons-y. I had a question about, and this is really minuscule and goofy and stupid and all kinds of things. Do they not have, like, galactic time? Mm-hmm. Like, does the Enterprise not run on whatever the Earth clock is, or whatever time it is in San Francisco, where Starfleet is headquartered, right?
Yeah,
well, no.
Is
Starfleet headquartered? Time. Wait, is Starfleet headquartered in San Francisco, or was it just the Federation was founded in San Francisco?
No, Starfleet is in San Francisco. I figured everything was on Pacific time.
Okay, so then is Haftel calling Picard in the middle of the night, or is Picard sleeping in the middle of the day?
Well, the guy's got to take a nap whenever he can, but it seemed like it was probably middle of the night.
It did seem like it was middle of the night, so is Haftel just that much of a jerk?
The long and short version of the answer to that is yes. Because here's the thing. Haftel is the most horrendous person that we have seen so far, who has that level. I mean, he puts original series top brass to shame. It never even occurs to him to simply ask Data's or anyone else's permission or opinion on the matter at all. It doesn't, so Picard has to do it for him. Picard has to step in and go like, oh, here's what decent people do. They ask before they do something stupid. Bruce Maddox, we get a Humanitarian of the Year award next to Admiral Haftel. He absolutely would. And Haftel is denigrating toward cocktail waitresses, and I find that offensive too.
I found that actually kind of a terrible thing.
Cocktail waitresses are, first of all, awesome, and second of all, as Guinan established, that guy has been in a bar or two in his life.
Yeah.
So, you don't denigrate somebody else's job. You just don't do that. And then what does he do? All high and mighty. I am Starfleet. Really? Really? You are. You look you up on the internet, Starfleet, and it's a picture of Admiral Haftel. No.
You really did not like Admiral Haftel, I think.
Not a fan of Admiral Haftel. But you know what? I think when we get to the show, we're going to talk about justifying the way that Haftel is.
You think so? Really?
In a weird way. In a weird way. Yeah.
I will be interested to see how we do that.
And by the way, was it his mistake? Yeah, it's his mistake. There are only 2 Soong-type androids in existence. Oops, we forgot to put Lore in the mission log.
Okay, here's what I couldn't remember. Are we under the impression that Lore is dead now? Because Data actually makes that mistake as well.
Yeah, but they don't record that information. Like, hey, we met Data's brother. That doesn't go in the captain's log.
What I'm saying, though, is Data made that mistake as well. He said that there was only one there's only one like him. And if he's gone, he's gone. But now he's made, and we're going to talk about this as well. Now he's made a daughter. So, that will continue. And so, like whoever wrote this episode, and then whoever checked the episode and whoever reworked the episode, yes, totally seems to have forgotten. And whoever acted in the episode, everybody has forgotten about Lore, right. It seems.
OMG. LOL. It seemed unfair that I would be the only one to not make the LOL joke. SMH.
So I know I'm the guy who said there is no Riker. And my whole point in saying there is no Riker is, I want to try to look for the the messages, the morals, the meanings, the sort of, the human condition of an episode, right?
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time separating what's being said about data and emotion and feeling and all that from the rest of it. I think it's because we keep sort of fixating on this whole, like, well, data has no emotions, has no feelings thing. And I often wonder about, well, prove to me that I do. Or prove to me that you do. And so while I don't want to get caught up in the whole, well, how long does it take to get from this planet to this planet? Then how could they have possibly gotten there in that time? Or, well, we actually know from the Kittimer Accord that, this.
Right,
I don't want to do all that, but I can't let go for some reason. I can't see past a lot of what's going on with data and his humanity and feelings and all that stuff. So if you'll indulge me, I need to hit a bunch of that today.
Do it, because I'm very curious where this is going, because I don't want to preemptively say that I disagree, because I don't think that's the case, but I think my experience with this was different.
Okay.
So I want to hear what you have to say, because it goes back to my mention of Haftel and the way that he is, and my feeling about this being not real, and I put that in finger quotes, which you can't see me do.
No, thank goodness you were there to tell us about it, though.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And do the finger quotes. Could Picard not just order Data to be more human? Could Picard not just order Data to start using contractions and recognize that he has emotions just like everyone else? I guess the problem that I'm having is it just that nobody has told Data yet? Look, you feel. Sadly, you do it alone, just like everybody else. Ultimately, you feel in isolation, and you don't understand that because you think you're missing something. But no, you've got it. It just kind of sucks sometimes. I've always been fascinated by color, by the idea in particular of red for some reason, red or blue, and how you and I both know what red is, right? Assuming that one of us is not colorblind. You and I both know what red is, but there is absolutely no way that we can be certain that we see the same thing when we see red.
Right.
We can both identify it as red.
Right.
But if I somehow magically, were able to see through your eyes, what I would see would be completely different. And it might look blue to me, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess I'm wondering if the same thing could not be said for feeling. Data wants, to feel. And I think wanting to feel is feeling. When Lal says, I do not wish to be different, right?
Yeah.
Has she not at that point expressed a desire, thus a feeling, thus an emotion? And so I looked up wish, right? I do not wish to be different. Okay, wish. Feel or express a strong desire or hope for something that is not easily attainable. Want something that cannot or probably will not happen. Okay, so somewhere in the definition of wish is desire. So look up desire. Desire, a strong feeling of wanting to have something or wishing for something to happen. Okay, feeling is in the definition of desire. So look up feeling. Feeling, an emotional state or reaction. Emotion, a natural instinctive state of mind deriving from one's circumstances, mood, or relationships with others. So she feels. She has emotion. It's not really argued whether or not she has emotion, because she ends up dying because she has emotion. But let's then go to, the whole thing with Data. When I created Lal, it was in the hope that someday she would choose to enter the academy and become a member of Starfleet. I wanted to give her something back in return, or to give something back in return for all that Starfleet has given me. Hope, a feeling of expectation, a desire for a certain thing to happen. Want, the verb, to have a desire to possess or do something. Wish for, desire, a strong feeling or wanting to have something or wishing for something to happen. Feeling, an emotional state or reaction, emotion, blah, blah, blah. Data feels. He just hasn't been told that he feels yet. And everybody lets him plunk around with the whole idea that he doesn't, right? Oh, I wish I could do this. Well, guess what then? You feel. Ta-da.
Well, yeah. So I did think that about the contractions, first of all. Like, why would that even be a thing, other than it's very convenient that we've introduced that idea about Data to make him different, to separate him. But yeah, you really could just say, okay, Data, every time you say I have, say I've. And that's, I mean, literally it's the easiest thing in the world. Like when you arrive at point A, that becomes point B, and then you carry on with what you're saying. So it shouldn't be that hard.
Right. I have in my iPhone, if I, in a text message, type in the letters LLAP, it brings up a little emoji that does the Spock fingers.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Now, that was before they introduced the emoji that actually just had the Spock fingers. It was when you had to cut and paste and do a little shortcut thing. But here's the thing.
Right.
My iPhone is smart enough that I can just give it a shortcut and it would say something else instead of the thing that it wants to say, right?
Yeah.
I got another question about the whole emotion thing.
Well, I thought you were going to ask if your iPhone had emotions, but yeah.
No.
The answer is yes.
Not yet. No, that's iOS. That's iOS 12. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Lal says, I learned today, and now somebody listening 10 years from now is like, they didn't do that until 15. Idiot. Lal says, I learned today that humans like to hold hands. It is a symbolic gesture of affection. Then she takes Data's hand, right? But she does it in sort of a weird, sort of awkward, sort of like a little kid I've never held hands before way. And so Data repositions his hand to hold hers more properly. Why?
To make it look more human.
Why?
She doesn't want to look different. I mean, here's the thing. You know,
what does he care? See, and the problem is he cares.
He cares. Yeah,
right.
I know that. That's exactly where it's going.
All right.
He cares.
Right.
Yeah. I get that.
You don't want to hear it.
No. I mean, it's not that I want to hear it. I think it's a fascinating argument. I guess my level of separation from this is to say that, you know, I really was thinking about our conversation about Star Trek not being real, Riker not being a real guy, because to me this really kind of drove it home that Data's an android being played by a human being who has to do everything he can to suppress emotion to play the character. So we're in on that as we watch it, right? And it's heartbreaking when he says, I can be there for her, but I can't love her. Okay, so we get it. That's the reality for that character in that context and in that moment, right? You take a guy like Haftel, and for the script, for the story to work the way it does, he has to be the worst guy. He has to be absolutely the worst guy we've ever met, because we have to have this conflict. Because what we have to see is this life played out with all of this conflict in front of us. I mean, sadly, it feels like Lal has to die. We kind of go back to the thing about Utah and Riker, you know, but it feels like for the script, Lal has to die because we need the most emotional impact that makes us sense, or that makes sense for the emotional arc of the story. And then you go to your logical non-suspension of disbelief brain that it has to happen because we have to have the continuation of the characters on the show. Unless he just decided, hey, and now we get to write in Data's kid, and now that becomes a character on the show. It's not that show. It's not where you introduce a 6-year-old and now here's the cute cousin. And no, that's not what's going to happen here.
Not this season.
Not this season. No. But you know, ultimately, Data is there for the same reason that Spock was there in TOS, which is to be the mirror for us to sort of throw these ideas of humanity at and see what comes back at us, or back to us, you know? So I found myself, and I know that this argument has taken place online on Twitter, and it's fascinating, and it goes in all these bizarre circles, which is kind of cool. But ultimately, I kind of took a step back from it, and I really was watching it with my logical brain, my non-suspension of disbelief brain, to say, well, yeah, I mean, this is how these characters have to play this out, because that's what serves the script here. So whether or not Data actually feels and just doesn't know it yet, he's behaving the way that Data needs to behave in this episode, because Lal is the one who has to feel, and that has to be the most dramatic thing about the episode.
Yeah. And like I say, for some reason I just couldn't let go of it. I mean, because the whole time I'm, writing up the notes and thinking about it and all that stuff, I'm like, I'm doing exactly what I wanted to not do a few weeks ago. But it still feels to me like there's something. Well, I guess it's the whole, prove to me that you feel anything, or prove to me that I do. I mean, the whole idea of supremacy in a way, based on sort of the carbon chauvinism thing and all that stuff. I say, I don't know. It caught me a lot for this episode.
But, I think that's the genius of building this episode. Great, I just skipped to the end. Sorry. Sort of the genius of building this episode is that you get to tell a very emotional, very human story through robots. You know, we get to tell the cycle of life, the circle of life through robots, and that's what's cool about it. Because we have to feel what's going on. We have to feel for Data, and we have to feel for Lal. You know, every little moment, and it's so smart the way it's these 30-second to 2-minute scenes that play out. And there are so many of them, and each one you just go, oh, wow, yeah, I know exactly what that feels like. You know? So it's impossible to separate emotion from Data in this. But I think that's the effectiveness of the character, that is our emotion, just like Spock reflecting back on us, saying, here's how humans feel. And isn't it nice to be able to see that through somebody who is not? It makes the mirror that much more acute somehow. So what else you got?
What else do I have?
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's talk a little bit. I kind of made my case for why I feel like Haftel is the way that he is. We've met some nice admirals. We've met some nice top brass. But I think that he is there to serve the script and to force the conflict to happen. Because if it were just Data creates this being and then that being dies at the end, I think that story doesn't work. But it's interesting to have the conflict there with somebody as absolutely deplorable as Haftel. And it's interesting that his logic, I felt, was terrible from the beginning, from the get-go. Starfleet has to take Lal away from Data because the longer she stays with Data as a parent, the more damage that he can do. That's, just makes absolutely no sense at all, even after it is established that Lal is a free, sentient being. That's still not good enough for Haftel.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out why Starfleet wanted Lal as bad as they did. I mean, is it because they're worried about a race of androids rising up one at a time? Right. Is it because they want, because they want to be able to capitalize on whatever it is that Data has come up with, or is it just control freakishness? Now, I will say it's a line that we have not been able to use in a very long time because it was such an original series idea. I wanted Haftel to just look over to Lal and say, "Come, Lal, I'm going to take you where you can learn about Bibles and pants." Right. I started thinking about the Native American schools or the Indian boarding schools, which I looked up. Oh, and I meant to say which website it was. Darn it. It was a Native American education something. It was associated with a museum, and I'm sorry I did not copy the link. Indian boarding schools were founded to eliminate traditional American Indian ways of life and replace them with mainstream American culture. First boarding schools were set up either by the government or Christian missionaries. Initially, the government forced many Indian families to send their children to boarding schools. Later, Indian families chose to send their children because there were no other schools available. And just deplorable things.
I felt like we left behind a good deal of the cultural imperialism in TOS. We did. Yeah. And yet, all I could think about with Haftel was that again. Yeah. I mean, and I love Lal's logic in the whole thing too, where he says to her, "There's only so much you can learn on a starship." You'd agree, right? And she's like, "Oh, I totally agree with that." So when I learn everything I can learn here, then I'll come see what you have to say. Right. And Haftel's like, "Yeah, no. There was one other thing, and honestly, I don't think he was as deplorable as a lot of admirals that we've seen. I think he was ghastly. Yeah.
And actually, his last line I thought was amazingly ghastly. For Haftel to say, "It just wasn't meant to be."
Ugh.
So if I stab a guy, and then I help try to save that guy, and that guy dies,
right?
Can I then say, "It just wasn't meant to be"? Because it was Haftel trying to take her away that caused her emotions to kick in, which caused her emotional break, which caused her meltdown, which caused her to die.
Yeah, he emotionally stabbed her.
Right. Does he really get to go? That's just a shame, isn't it? Yeah. Well, I gotta go.
Yeah, right. Oh, let me help put this back together that I just ruined.
Exactly.
Jerk.
Yes. Oh, thank you, Admiral. And Data says, thank you, Admiral. Forgive me if this were a nighttime soap. Data would have said, I think you've done enough.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. No, that's just one of the many reasons that Haftel. Yeah. No, Haftel will not go on a mission log T-shirt. That's I feel strongly about him. So is it really the most carbon chauvinist episode yet? Then Data is totally right that no one else needs to consult the captain about reproducing. Mm-hmm. And no other life form that they have come across has merited a visit from Starfleet top brass. Micro brains, they don't care about those. They're like, oh, yeah, okay. Oh, you did that thing on that planet? Cool. You just keep going and send us the reports back, and we'll get back to you one day about that. There is this assumption right from the start that Picard needs to be involved in what Data is doing, and then Starfleet's assumption right from the start that they have to be involved in what's going on. Deanna has the great line, why should biology rather than technology determine if it's a child? That sounds like something that you would say, Ken. So my hat is off to Deanna.
Thanks. Yeah. I think. Yeah. It's not the most carbon chauvinist episode, no. Picard does come with a fairly carbon chauvinist idea, but it takes him no time to get off that idea.
Sure.
It's pretty quick. In fact, Data's like, when Picard says, I really wish you would talk to me about this, and Data says, I'm sorry, do you want me to turn her off? And Picard's like, you can't turn her off, she's alive. And it's like, wow, that happened really fast.
It is interesting, though. We're only so many weeks away from The Measure of a Man, where Picard was defending Data's right to be, and just saying, look, I don't understand it, you don't understand it, but just because we don't understand it doesn't mean that he doesn't have a right to be and to create his own life, figuratively at that point, literally now, So it's just so strange that it would come from him. Picard clearly is on Data's side through the rest of it, but it is kind of a strange start to see him like that. I think.
Well, it's not so strange though when you lay it in with everything else, right? Why is LQ Sonny Clemens walking around my ship? He was dead. Why didn't you just leave him dead? Hey, those proto-Vulcans, that guy was going to die. Why is he alive now? He should have been dead. So, once he's once the problem is actually in his lap, he'll go ahead and take care of it. What he would really like, though, is for no problems to land in his lap.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I'm not saying he's lazy about it. It's just, he can be fairly cut and dried until he can't. Yeah. Until Sarjenka, suddenly, until he hears her voice. And then he's like, crud.
Sure, right.
I was almost clear.
Yeah. One of the things that left me really uneasy about this was so just to remind myself, Starfleet isn't real, so we're only given what we're given in the show. Okay, that's fine, but man, this whole thing is just a terrible indictment of the upper levels of Starfleet, because so I picture this, the rank and file on the ships, and by rank and file I mean actually from the captain all the way down to the guys peeling potatoes. They are, to me now, they're the wide-eyed idealists who sincerely believe in seeking out new life and living by this code represented by the Prime Directive, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's why they do what they do. And so many times on our show, Ken, we have talked about what is life like back on Earth for the people who don't have that privilege of being on a starship with holodecks and replicated food and all these comforts. What is it like for them? Well, now I'm kind of terrified about the administrative abilities of Starfleet. The admins are narrow-minded, power-mad jerks who can't even make it through their own mission statement without screwing it up. Picard actually says it. We are here to seek out new life. Guess what? We've done that. Now back off. But no, they're like, oh, no, now we get to own this, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing, though. Even on the Enterprise, I mean, for everything that you're saying about, you know, I wanted to wave, by the way, when you said the people peeling potatoes, because if memory serves, that's what we're doing.
That is what we're doing. Yeah.
Hey, that's us.
That is a shout out to us.
Yeah, there you go. Woo! And by the way, Picard did do a shout out to Measure of a Man as well.
He did.
Yeah,
he did.
I think you mentioned that, but he, said, "Hey, this guy's got rights. I helped define them." Like some James T. Kirk walking around. I helped write the Prime Directive. Look at you. There was a moment on the show that I was really pretty disappointed in, and it was somebody who was actually on the Enterprise.
Yeah.
He takes Lal to school, and it's like, well, so with the older kids, she wasn't that great because she's not that well socialized. So he put her with the younger kids, but the younger kids were afraid of her. Yeah, really, this is not a teachable moment at that point. I mean, I would think that this is actually the kind of thing that Starfleet and that a teacher on the Enterprise should be talking about. Because let's do it a different way. Sorry, Dr. Solar, the children without pointy ears are afraid of your child, so your child has to leave. Yeah. Because that's pretty much what happened to Lal. Now, of course, you never do that with Vulcans, because Vulcans are the best. And we all know that.
Yep.
Vulcans, there's nothing better than the only thing better than a Vulcan is more than one Vulcan. That's it, right?
Right.
But, you know, the 10 man and his 10 kid, no problem. No, your child scared the other children, so your child must leave now.
all of that was just so painful.
Yeah, and I know the whole point is so you can eventually go, so Lal walks into a bar. I get that.
Right.
But still, it's sort of like, oh, let's find a different way to do that, huh? Maybe don't introduce the whole idea of the school thing, because the school thing was an interesting idea, except when we find out the school thing is only introduced so that she can be shunned. It's like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. But worse.
Yeah.
See, much worse now that I think about it.
Maybe if this were like a two-parter, then we get the moment where Beverly talks to Wesley, and Wesley's like, oh, yeah, I'm kind of a weirdo outcast, too. Maybe I should talk to her, you know? Maybe I should be a decent person, you know? Because he is. He's a good kid. He's a good kid. We kid Wesley, but he's a good kid. Let's talk about Deanna Troi saying that Lal needs to choose between male and female.
We can if you want to. We can also talk about why Lal thinks that being gender neuter is inadequate.
It's just very strange. Like she picked that up. Yeah.
Well, but where did she get that and why? I would think she would look at that and go, wow, look at all the stuff I don't have to deal with.
Right. Yeah, but it's interesting that Deanna would be kind of like, okay, well, so this is what it means to be human. First, you have to choose a sex.
Yeah.
What, okay.
Well, not what it means to be human, what it means to be.
Right.
Yeah. Because it wasn't human yet. I caught a little cultural insensitivity off Troi, by the way. Mm-hmm. When she did the whole when Lal was apparently considering being Klingon, Troi says a friend for Worf. Right. I obviously Lal's not going to choose Klingon at that point, because there's no way Worf doesn't come back with Lal's head under his arm. Right. Because she would be an abomination as far as Worf is concerned, I would think.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of the movie Grand Canyon.
Okay.
Kevin Kline sets up the Danny Glover and Alfre Woodard characters, and they're on the date, and they're like trying to figure out why Kevin Kline set them up. And then one of them, I can't remember which one, said, "Do you think we're the only black people he knows?" And that's sort of what I was thinking when Troi was like, "Oh, a friend for Worf." Yes, because it's that easy. Right. It's absolutely. Right. Oh, look, something that looks like a Klingon. Here, you guys will be. Boy, they're just lucky Lal didn't choose Klingon, because, well, it would have been a short episode.
It would have been a very short episode, yeah.
It seems to me. I was curious, forgive me, I don't want to get too far away from the whole choosing the gender thing. I'm not sure what was up with Data letting her choose that, because that's not something that kids get to do, right?
Oh, yeah, true. Well, I mean...
Of course... The parent doesn't actually get to choose. In the 24th century, you would think maybe, except that might be a eugenics thing. It got sort of wiped out in the eugenics wars in the 1990s, maybe.
Right.
But if we're making the whole thing analogous to, raising a kid, all that stuff, Children don't get to choose. But
and
then,
certainly
then again,
Data
neither
didn't
does the
get to
father.
choose.
Right. Yeah.
Data didn't get to choose his sex. You know?
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe you could make a case for... Well, I don't know. You kind of can't make the case because at a certain point you have to say, well, okay, if the show were written now, maybe with a little more sensitive touch to it, where you'd say, well, maybe gender isn't the most important thing about this person's being, then you could take that a whole other route.
Right.
But I guess in this is the reality of, well, we have to get this actor out of this makeup that hides everything they can possibly do. Vis-a-vis emotion.
Or name it, or instead of Lal, they could have named her Oscar.
Right.
And then everywhere she went, and the Oscar goes to Ten Ford. There you go. And the Oscar goes to
that's good.
Patrick Stewart. Okay. Sorry.
Lal has some great questions about purpose. I thought those were nice moments. Data responds by saying that it is to contribute in a positive way to the world in which we live. And she asks, why am I me instead of someone else? And where did I come from? Of course, this is where we get to just stop that right there and send her to school.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, I kind of feel like Data has learned a lot from Picard. Because, Data asks tough questions, and Picard practically hits Data's reset button every time. That is just so human of you.
He literally turned her off.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Lal asks tough questions, and Data tries to hit her reset button by applauding her for asking the tough questions. Mm-hmm. And yes, then he does eventually turn her off. When that doesn't work, he's like, I got to figure out how Picard does that, because, man, I never get answers to my tough questions. But I stop asking.
Right.
Flattery. It's flattery that gets... Right. Because, he feels the... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, that's... You're exactly right. You're exactly right. Yeah. Data, man, I feel bad to bring this up because I don't want to hurt you. Data is totally okay with the idea that struggle in its own right is the reward. Yeah. That learning and striving are totally cool even if the goal is unobtainable. He says the effort yields its own rewards.
Yeah, explain to me what those are.
I explain what the rewards are?
Yeah. Especially for Data, but explain to me what they are in general.
Well, I mean... Do we have a couple more hours? No,
yeah.
I mean, I know this is the kind of philosophical thing that gets you going, and I think for valid reasons.
Well, I don't understand. I don't understand it. So what he says is, it is the struggle itself that is most important. We must strive to be more than we are, Lal. It does not matter that we will never reach our ultimate goal. The effort yields its own rewards. Okay, well, if we've established that he does not feel, then he's not going to feel any rewards, and why is he doing it? If we've established that he does feel, why would he not say nuts to this? Because, I mean, why constantly strive to be something that you cannot possibly be? I'm not saying you don't better yourself, but if you come to a place of contentment or enlightenment or whatever, because this was always right. I know you're talking about the feeders of Vol. You're talking about Omicron Ceti 3. I mean, there are people who aren't trying, who aren't striving, and they are perfectly happy. Yeah. And that is seen as disastrous. And now we have somebody willingly saying, I can never be what I want to be, but I'm always going to try to be what I want to be, even though I can never be what I want to be. And maybe this is why I get so hung up on the whole thing about whether or not Data can feel. Clap hard enough and Tinker Bell will live. Believe. I mean, if Picard literally ordered Data to feel, could he? Data walks around believing that he can't. And if something gave Data the belief that he could, would he then see that he does? And maybe that's the whole thing. I don't buy the idea that I don't buy the idea that if I know I can't be something, I'm going to keep trying to be that thing. If I know, if it is literally encoded in me, if it is programmed in me, if it's hardwired in me. Let's say I want to fly. I'm not saying I want to be a pilot, John. I want to fly. Me, in my body, want to fly. I'm going to keep trying forever, even though physically I will never, ever, ever be able to fly. You would call me a lunatic at that point.
Oh, yes.
You call me a lunatic anyway. I know that. But you would call me a lunatic at that point. And yet Data, somehow it's noble for Data to want to be more human, even though he firmly believes he can't be human, to the point that he will, in fact, never be anything like human. He won't even be as human as Pinocchio before the Blue Fairy came. And I don't understand why that is a laudable moral that Star Trek throws out all the time. Look, strive, sure. Be better, sure. If you end up at a place where you're happy and you're healthy and you're fine, okay, don't strive then if you don't want to. I'm not sure why it's a constant message, especially when a lot of times that message is given to us like, yeah, I know you're happy, but you're not doing anything, so that doesn't make me happy. So do me a favor, because that would make me happy.
I knew it was going to go there.
Perhaps I am a little too close to the manufactured intelligence topic to be objective, but is Admiral Haftel really not going to be charged with some sort of crime?
Striving, as we do in every episode.
But never achieving.
To get to the end of the episode. No, you see, that's the thing. We strive to get to the end of every episode, but you know what? We get to the end of it. You know why? Because we can. Time now to ask the questions that we ask at the end of every episode about the messages, morals, and meanings of a given episode and whether or not the whole thing holds up. The Offspring, John. Does the episode hold up in your opinion?
If we tried, and didn't even try that hard, we could pick apart every little detail here that doesn't work. Whatever it may be. Admiral Haftel's horrible attitude, the explanations for things that happened in the story arc. And if we did that, we would be missing the point. This is an emotional story, and the character work is great. It's about experiencing a life, about growing up, about parent-child relationships, and it's beautiful. And no wonder this is a favorite for so many people. It's as profound a statement about life and death as you can hope to get from Star Trek, and it's just handled so well. So just as a piece of drama, as a piece of storytelling, as a story that is about emotion, that gets to affect you emotionally, yeah, it holds up. It holds up really, really well. How about you, sir?
Where this is Frakes' first bit of direction, I kind of want to address some of that.
Okay.
There are funny moments in this episode, and I don't know, this was not really his directing, this is the writing. There are funny moments in this episode when Lal says he is biting that female. That's funny. I mean, it was really, it made me laugh every time I watched it. But the standard lines, congratulations, Data, it's a girl, and what are your intentions with my daughter? That doesn't work. And that's so often what happens in Star Trek, it seems to me, with comedy. When they try to do comedy, 9 times out of 10, it just, it hurts. The chair with the Ferengi is a wonderful comedic thing.
Oh God, yes.
And there are more bad comedic tries on Star Trek than I think there are good, which is why I'm glad that mostly it didn't try for comedy. Right. I do love the fact that Jonathan Frakes is fully aware of who Riker is. He is Commander Horndog.
Full Riker.
He comes in to 10 Forward, and there's a girl behind the bar, and it's a girl he's never seen before. Of course, we know she's going to want him, but he says flirtatiously to a woman that he doesn't recognize, "You're new around here, aren't you?" Had they met in a corridor rather than 10 Forward, one wonders where they would have ended up. It really kind of scares the crap out of me. His direction was really good, I thought, in this episode. I teared up 2 or 3 times. I can't remember. Of course, when she dies in the end, because I'm not a robot yet. So of course I'm gonna, tear up there. And I can't remember what the other time was. When she walks around saying, "This is what it is to feel. This is what it is to feel." Oh, God, yeah. starts like hitting her sternum.
Yeah.
It just it was just brutal. He did a really just a fantastic job directing this, and a lot of the writing was really great. Not all the writing's great, but yeah, I think this episode holds up and holds up and holds up. I've actually had I try to do these shows in kind of a vacuum. You and I have talked about that. I don't talk to too many people before the episode about the episode.
Right.
I've actually talked to 2 or 3 people about this episode because it turned on too many thoughts in my head to sort of sit with on my own. I think this episode is fantastic. Maybe not as exciting or pulse pounding as yesterday's Enterprise, but more Star Trek-y, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, much more what Star Trek tries to do.
Yeah.
I think.
It doesn't have to be yesterday's Enterprise. Like,
Yeah.
It is nice to have this purely emotional story where you just sit there and you identify with Lal and you identify with Data. When any show can do that, not just Star Trek, but when any show can do that and make you feel what's happening on screen, that's really special.
Yeah.
I feel like it's almost unfortunate that The Measure of a Man was, relatively recent, because we retread some of the same stuff here. And like I said, you just have to introduce the villain to give it conflict, even though that's topical stuff that we already hit. So maybe that is part of a failing of the episode. But again, I get it. I get it for dramatic storytelling purposes. You have to have that villain in there, and it can't just be the villain coming to steal Lal in the middle of the night or kill her or whatever. It's got to be something that has some real world resonance for this world of Starfleet and the Federation that they've created. So that's why I say I get it with Haftel.
I mean, there's a bit more, though. We're not just talking about sort of Measure of Man kind of things. We're also now talking about parenthood, right? Who has the rights to raise a child? Is it the state, which would be represented in this case by Starfleet, or is it the parent?
Yeah.
Why do we have kids in the first place? I was horrified in Up the Long Ladder. When not to bring loyalty, but the clone people, when they're trying to talk Riker into it, they're like, you can keep you can live on, you can go on in history even long after you're gone. And Riker says, we have different ways of doing that. We have children. Okay, yeah. I hated that.
Yeah.
For Data, it makes more sense because he is the only one of his kind. I mean, so not only would he have companionship, but he also would, It addresses the family part of it as well. I guess that's what I'm saying. It's not just the roboticist part that was in Measure of a Man. What about messages?
Well, what about?
You have to go. Sorry.
All right.
Jinx.
Well, so here's the weird thing. I think we had a lot of fun talking about this episode, and there are a lot of light moments within all this heavy stuff, but I feel like there's a lot of really thoughtful stuff in terms of messages, moral meanings. Going off of what you just said, you can't tell someone else how to raise their kids, certainly not Data. There is that message that I think you have every reason to disagree with. We must strive to be more than we are, so says Data, even if the goal is unobtainable.
See, why is that an okay message? Striving to be more than you are, I get. Striving for the impossible, I don't understand.
Well, so I wouldn't look at it this way. Again, Data isn't real. So when Data, the android, says, I want to be human or be more human, more is the operative phrase there. But when you've got other people on the Enterprise who represent humanity and maybe individual human achievements, you've got the engineer who was blind and is blind without his technology. And not only does he get to overcome that blindness, but he gets to be a better and better engineer every day because he strives. Maybe he won't be the best. Hey, maybe he's no Dr. Leah Brahms, but he strives to be better and better and better at that job every day. Maybe no one person can actually know everything there is to know about warp cores and warp field theory, but Geordi's going to keep going and keep going.
All right, I need to make sure that this is 100% clear. I am not saying that we should not strive to be better than we are. What I am saying is it always bothers me when Star Trek speaks in absolutes, but then wants to say, but that's a good thing. I mean, when Data says it does not matter that we will never reach our ultimate goal, the effort yields its own rewards. okay, there are too many absolutes in here that don't work to make that work. So, I mean, I'm not saying, look, if you want to get better at something, get better at something. I had a friend who used to get so mad because another friend of ours said, I wish I liked reading. Okay, well, either no, you don't, or go ahead. Right?
Yeah,
because those are things that you can actually work on. Find something that you like to read, and then you will like reading more, and that'll lead to other things that you like to read. That's a fairly simple one. Let's go back to me saying, I want to fly. Well, good. You're not going to be able to, though, and maybe you should stop trying because you're going to hurt yourself. But
you know what? Maybe discovery is part of the process. Maybe that's the thing.
You're killing me.
No, I'm serious.
It's the absolute, though. It's the absolute. It's the knowing that he cannot be the thing that he wants to be.
Yeah,
why not want something else?
The discovery that comes along the way might actually lead to something else that it was unexpected and better.
And what's Data going to care? He's a robot. He wants one thing. He single-mindedly wants one thing that he knows he cannot have.
Well, Ken, Data isn't real, and that's why we're leaving him out of that part of the conversation.
But my point is... all right, go ahead.
All right, here's, in all seriousness, there are a couple of other messages that came out of this, I thought. You talk about moments that choke you up in this episode.
Yeah.
I go back to what McCoy said at the end of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. He's not really dead as long as we remember him. Watching this episode where we see this full life cycle play out in 45 minutes is really profound, and it's really gripping, and we actually play out that death and what happens after Lal's death at the end. And when Data points to his head and say, it's Data speak. I downloaded and I moved this and I copied, so I've got her. What that means in human terms is what we know. We remember the people who have left us because that is how they live. Yeah. So I thought that was a great message in here. And man, the other moment here that choked me up as well, it's Lal's last words: flirting, laughter, painting, family. To me, that's such a great message because, again, that's such a great way of summing up a life.
Yeah.
We're not guaranteed anything else. We don't, for all of our discussion about striving and fighting and achieving and this and that, that is so simplistic and so beautiful to say that that's really about the best we can do. Flirting, laughter, painting, family. Why not? Why not throw in your own to make your own meaning?
Yeah, it really is fantastic because certainly she could have remembered, Haftel, the fear of the children, leaving. I mean, there are bad things that happen, and the fact that what she focuses on at the end is all the beautiful stuff is really beautiful.
Yeah. So I would say that all of those hold up. And how about you, sir?
Well, I mean, except for the one that I keep arguing with you on, yes. But this conversation will continue. How many more years are we doing this show?
Oh, too many.
What? Hey.
No, I'm kidding.
I have a feeling that we may have this discussion again and again and again.
Mission Log is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Executive producer Rod Roddenberry. You can find out so much more at roddenberry.com, where you will find products, entertainment, new and interesting news and stuff. Roddenberry.com. And for more exciting Star Trek podcasts, check out Trek FM. That's trek.fm. And for the latest in Star Trek news and discussion, be sure to visit trekmovie.com.
Next week, Sins of the Father.
Some of the music for Mission Log provided by Warp 11, online at warp11.com, and from the album Messages by Key Theory, free to download at kitheory.com. Landru, Thal, Minuet, Lal. Is it just me? Or does Star Trek kill off some of its most relatable characters? And transmission.